Hey everyone! Oh, I have an exciting grungy goodness for you today. Very, very simple. I collect my cereal bags, and not all are cereal bags. I mean, a lot of your crackers and things come in this same kind of bag. So I just open it up as best I can without, and keeping it all intact. And then I take a wet wipe, like a Lysol wipe or a wet wipe, and just wipe down the inside so there's no crumbs or anything, and it's good to use. Now, if you don't have this kind of bags, most definitely could use the wax paper. This is just cheap wax paper from, nothing is a Dollar Tree, at my store anyway. Nothing there is a dollar. And I tried some with these and it works just as good. So, a couple options for you there. But here is what we're going to create. And what inspired this was I saw a video, someone making these little bags in a different way than I have. I've made them before, but to me, this was an easier way. And I'll link that below and hopefully put her name on the screen because I don't even want to try to remember who it was at this minute. I'll get it wrong. But it inspired me because I had an Etsy order for some of these playing cards and I realized I had nothing to package them in. I have a lot of cellophane bags, resealable, that I purchased, but I didn't have anything really this size that I thought looked nice. And also I had some rusty pieces that were on the about this size. The normal bags that I packaged my rusty pieces in were too small. They were too short. So I got to thinking, what can I use to make bags that would go along with the grungy feel? Because if you're getting something like this or rusty bits, I'm assuming that this would be okay to send it in. I mean, it's not like we're making something pristine probably with those things. So this is what I come up with. I think these bags are perfect. And not just, it doesn't have to be this size. Look, isn't this cool? Doesn't that look cool? For this one here is a cereal bag. And this one is wax paper. And I ink dyed them with alcohol inks on the wax paper and this. The only difference I will say on the wax paper, of course, it doesn't move as good, but no matter which one you use, you're going to have to wear gloves. I took my paper, dotted on my alcohol inks, and just moved it around with my hand. And I did that outside. Please, please do not do it inside because even if you think you're going to be quick, this the smells are so strong. I promise. Well, if you're like me, you'll get a headache. But let me show you a few I made here. So I did the alcohol ink, ran them through the embossing machine. Look at that. Isn't that cool? And then I took a little bit of the metallic wax paste and just barely went over the top. On this one, I believe I just embossed. I didn't use anything else. These I have done and just haven't made packages out of them yet. This one I embossed with a heart. Now on this, went lightly over the embossing with Distress ink. I'm sorry. Yes, Distress oxide, like this. And it does not like to dry on this kind of paper, but I'm going to show you a trick to get it to dry quickly. Or two different items you can use to do it with. Here's another one with the tread. And this one I used kind of a silver, metallic silver. This is a number embossing folder, and I went over it with Distress oxide, and see, it's dry. It's not going to come off there, and I just think it really gives it a nice look. And then if you don't have an embossing machine, of course, you can always do them without being embossed. And I just took a piece of fabric, took a little piece of cheesecloth and stamped it with just a normal stamp and glued it on the front. And I think that looks really cool. And I can kind of see putting maybe an eyelet here, maybe with a rusty can top dangling. Wouldn't that look cool? Wouldn't that make a nice grungy packaging? I just like it. Or, I mean, it doesn't even have to be packaging. It could be a pocket that you put in your junk journals, a floating ephemera. Or maybe you want to glue it down. I mean, there's just so many things you can do with these. Here's another one. I don't think this one's quite dry yet. I just sprayed it. So we're going to let that one dry some more. And then I have this one with some letters. I just love it. I love the look of it. And it's so easy. And if you don't have alcohol inks, I didn't try this on the cereal bag, but I did try it on the wax paper. You can use permanent inks, not a water reactive ink, but a permanent waterproof ink. And I'm going to show you that too. You can color them that way. Okay, so I pretty much already described to you how I did the paper. Just by putting alcohol inks on it to get your background and then embossing it. So let me show you how I glue them first. So these are roughly 5.5 wide and 4.5 tall. And I'll show you how to go about getting the size you need, because we're going to make some. I pulled out some little tea-dyed cards just that were a different size, so I could show you how to get the measurements on whatever size bag that you want. But this is how we're going to glue it together. This is, I thought, the easiest way. So you just meet your sides after you cut your paper. I'm kind of doing this backwards. I should cut my paper first, but I really wanted to get this one glued together because it's so pretty. Okay, so you just, if you have one of these mats that have the measurements on it, you could center it and make sure that your line is down the back. I'm not going to be that particular with mine because, again, these are just items I'm putting for sale items in. You know, it's not like I'm selling this bag. It's just a cool little thing that goes with. So you fold it where your sides will meet, and hopefully mine's pretty centered. Now, I've made these bags before, and I believe I even did a tutorial when I was showing cereal bag liners before. At this point, I glued it. So pretend this is glued, and you would fold this up wherever you want your line. I folded about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, something, whatever looks good to you. And then I would have to open it and cut this flap off. You don't have to, but it's just really bulky if you leave it. If you do it this way, don't glue it. Go ahead and do your folding just like this. Unfold it. Take your scissors and just do a little miter cut on each corner. Open it up and cut these two off. To me, this was just easier. When she showed this, I thought, wow, why didn't I think of that before? Instead of trying to fight with my bag that I had already glued down and trying not to pull up the glue I just put down, you know, that whole thing. So now we just put a very thin layer of glue. She was using wax paper and she used Barely Arts glue, glitter glue. And that's my favorite glue. But currently I had ran out and they didn't ship during the winter time, so I had to use the Barely Arts, and it will not work on the cereal bag liners. It will work on the wax paper, but not the cereal bag. So for that, I'm using Fabri-Tac, and I'm just using a very thin, after I get the glob off. I love this stuff because, see, even if it's on your fingers, you just roll it up and it comes right off. A very thin line. Fold it over, and when I do that, I kind of push away so that the glue doesn't go inside and glue my bag shut. So I just kind of press it down and pushing out of the crease, like so. Then I just put a really small thin line on the bottom. And I do emboss before I put the bag together, obviously, but just to clarify, I have made them before where I made the bag, then I embossed. And I just feel like this works out better. So all sides are either concave or raised, depending on how you want yours to look, versus the front is raised and the back is concaved. Hope that makes sense. So just to make sure my bag isn't stuck together, I'm going to put my bone folder down in through there, all the way to the bottom. And it's done, just like that. Isn't it cool? Another thing I like to do, my deckled edge scissors do not like this. These kind of scissors doesn't like to cut the wax paper. But if you're like me and you're not particular with your scissors, my fabric pinking shears right across the top give it a cool look too. I like that. And your bag's done. I mean, you have a gift bag just like that. You can decorate it however you want, put eyelets in it, maybe a little tag, do something like this, you know, whatever you want. It's that simple to make any bag you want. Now let me show you how to make the size that you want. So this is just a sheet of the cereal bag. It was a really large cereal bag, and I think out of this bag, I'm going to end up getting about 12 bags, I think. Don't hold me to that. But my bags are, those are the bags that are the playing card size. And they were 5.5 wide by 4.5 tall. So now we're going to make a different size. And I want to make them to fit these cards. Okay, so my little card is, I'm going to write this down, is 4 inches tall. That's my height. And it is 3 inches wide. So to figure out how much cereal bag I'm going to need, I know that on my height, I need my height plus, depending on how much room you want at the bottom to fold up, I usually add a 1/2 inch. You can add more or whatever you want. So I'm going to make my height 4.5 inches. I'm going to add a 1/2 inch for the fold. And then on my width, I know I have to wrap it. So it has to be double the width. So times 2. Plus, I give myself another 1/4 inch to let it flap. Or a 1/2 if you want. I think I did a 1/2. Plus a 1/2. So we know we're going to need 6.5 inches wide. I hope that makes sense. So 4.5 inches tall, 6.5 inches wide. Get out my handy cutter here. And I can't get it all on my screen, so... Well, yeah, I can. I could do it from up here, couldn't I? Sorry, I'm used to doing it from the bottom. Let's see. I like this color, so I'm going to cut 6.5 inches wide. 4.5 tall. And look at that, I cut off the prettiest part. But I was thinking, wouldn't these be cool as tabs on pages? Put some threads there. Ooh, you know what? I may do that to this tab. Okay, so there's our bag. Easy as that. Now I'm going to emboss it. I think I'm going to use, what do I have here? I have the letters. And because most embossing plates are not wide enough for this, I'm going to do it 1/2 and 1/2. And I'll put it in, I'll run it through the machine, and then I'll move it over, and I'll run it through the second time, just to get both pieces so that all the letters are facing the right way. You could put it like this, and it would fit pretty good, because by the time you glued your flap, not much would show that wasn't embossed. But I don't really think I want my letters horizontal. I think I want them to be correct. So I'm going to emboss this real quick, and I'll be right back. So I've embossed it. Hope you can tell with the letters. And you've noticed I have put down a piece of cardboard for 2 reasons: for when I use the distress ink, and to seal the distress ink where it doesn't run. Now, I did try this step using the permanent inks that are not waterproof, but I had colored mine so dark it really doesn't show up on this black, because I wanted it to be really grungy. I found it was better to use my oxides. I did want to show you one more thing. When I alcohol inked my Ciro bag, I use these colors. This is Espresso, Pool, Rust, and Pitch Black. So those are the 4 colors I used on the Ciro bag to get the grungy color. Okay, so I've done that. I want to just put some colors lightly over the top and do this with the lightest hand that you can, because you don't want it to be real heavy or it will leave streaks. I like the streaks. I think it adds to the grungy look, but like this. If you don't want that, do it lightly like I did the other ones. That, I wanted some of it, so I used a heavier hand. But I'm using crushed olive. That's what that was. This is Rusty Hinge. And I'm just kind of, if you get any on this, now this is what I do. I'm sure somebody's going to tell me you're not supposed to do that. I didn't, but if I had got another color on this, I take a baby wipe, a damp, one that's wet, not dried up, and just go over the top of it, and it comes right off. And this is salvaged patina. So those are the colors I'm going to use for this one. And I am going to just run them together a little bit, because I like when they overlap some, which means I got probably a little bit of yellow on here. So I'm going to take my baby wipe, and it will come off. Again, I'm probably contaminating this. I don't know. I'm not a professional with oxide inks. That's just how I've been doing it. A little bit more there. Okay. Now we have to leave this to dry. And the 2 ways I found to get this to dry, because when I done it the first time, I didn't put anything on it, and I left it for 24 hours and it was still coming off. So I went to trying to figure out ways to make it dry. My first thought was hairspray, which works. That's my choice. That's what I would use. It's just the cheapest hairspray you can find. As my friend says, Suave. She says it's French. So I used the Suave. I got the biggest can. I went to the Nothing's a Dollar Tree, and I was shocked that they did not have hairspray at mine, because it doesn't have to be expensive hairspray. But this is just, when you spray it on, think of it like a half a squirt. You don't want to give it a full blast very close, or it will make all your colors really run, because again, this is water-based, so it's reactive, and I'm sure there's water in hairspray or something. So I'm just lightly going to spritz it. And another thing, it does make your colors more vibrant, but it's kind of hard for me to see where I've sprayed and not sprayed. So I just kind of hold it at an angle, make sure all of it looks wet, and it does. So it takes about 25-30 minutes for this to completely dry. And I'm just going to set that aside where it can dry. Another thing that you can use, the second alternative, which I did try and it does work just as good, is the triple thick glue. Like you would use this for master boards, something that you've glued down with a glue stick, and you want to spray over it to make sure everything stays, because I don't know about you, but I do use a really good glue stick. It never has let me down. But I just, if you're going to sell something, I prefer to double up on the glue. So I got this for the master boards, and it does work. But for what we're doing here, which is, Ciro bags, I'm not going to sell them. They're just a gift. Not that gifts should be cheap. That came out all wrong. But I mean, I wasn't thinking the purpose of them would be to last for a long, long time. So, and these are expensive. I mean, they're not like a fortune or nothing, but they're a lot more than hairspray. And you can get this on Amazon. And I did just the same thing. But the only downside to this is it's more expensive, and you absolutely no way can use this in the house, even if you had a mask. I mean, I think even outside people have used this with the mask. I think I heard a girl say, and it's still, her eyes water. It's very, very strong. Her eyes water. It still bothers her to do it. And I did do it outside, and I was not right up on it. I mean, I had it on a table, and it was very, very stout. I wouldn't use this, absolutely no way, in the house. It's very strong. And again, that's just another option. I'm not recommending it. Like I said, for two reasons. It's a little pricey, and it's very, very strong. So while that's drying, I was going to show you how we could make wax paper. Again, I didn't try this on cereal bags, but I think I will while we're here. I took wax paper and this kind of ink, the permanent ink, and just slid it over my wax paper until it was colored to the darkness that I wanted. And I just laid that on there, and look, now I've got, how cool is that? Anyway, it will dry. This dried in probably, I don't know, I put it on there earlier this morning, so probably 6 hours ago, and it's dry. I haven't kept coming in here to see how long it took, so I would allow some time. If you were going to make these, I would definitely do a mass make so that they can all be drying as you're making more. But that is how I would color the wax paper if you didn't have alcohol inks. And actually, for the wax paper, I mean, as far as smell and not having to go outside to do it, I would probably use these anyway. I love it how it turned out. I'm going to try that on our cereal bag here. These are the ones that are drying, so I'm going to set them back over here. I also thought, you know, for the plain cellophane bags that I have, that I normally send stuff in, I wonder if you could, I haven't wiped this off yet. I wonder if you could use this on cellophane bags, the alcohol ink, and do the same process to maybe spruce up the bags that I do have. And I'm not going to quit getting those kind of bags because, I mean, this does take a bit, drying time and this and that. So it isn't like I could totally replace those bags, but I think it's a nice option to have. So I'm going to try this Viridian. It's kind of a greenish color. And it is coloring it. Hard to see because it's on this brown box, but see, it is coloring it. Not great. Let me try to find something a little darker. I'm going to try some cactus flower and some monarch orange. See what we get from those. Look, by me putting it on this board, this cardboard, it's giving it a texture, kind of like corrugated. Can't help myself. I'm going to try a little bit of black. Now, this one is dried up, so we'll see if I get anything out of it. I'm just going to go over it lightly, maybe hit the wrinkles. Okay, well, it's definitely not as vibrant as the alcohol inks, but you can certainly see it is giving it color. But anyway, that's another option to color your paper. Like I say, not as vibrant by no means, but the color is certainly there. Enough to give you some grungy background for when you, if you emboss or go over it with the distress ink and color it that way. So I think while my other sheets are drying, I'm going to go ahead and use the piece I cut off to make a tab. See what kind of something I could come up with for this little piece. It's going to be a writing sheet, and it is tea dyed, so it's kind of got some grungy to it anyway, and it's going to look really cool. So I'm going to play with that while this paper's drying, but also I may go ahead and emboss these where we can play with these too. Here's what I did with the little card. Isn't it cute? Sewed some of that on, just did a little stamping, but gave you that grungy good look. It says live out loud. How fitting. Anyway, so that's what we're going to put in our grungy pocket here, and it's almost dry. I wanted to show you that I went ahead and embossed the orange one. I put a little, I embossed it with a, like a haunted house, and did some pumpkins here. I wanted to tell you two things because I'm kidding myself, but just humor me. Make sure that you're putting it in the right way. See, I have raised pumpkins on this side, and I have inverted pumpkins on this side because I wasn't paying attention. So that's okay. It's just wax paper. I'll figure out something to do with it. And then also, when I was embossing them, when I was embossing the cereal bags, I would run it through twice to give it a good emboss. I didn't think about, on the wax paper, it's a lot thinner, so I managed to get a little hole. I didn't need to run these through twice. And again, be mindful of the way your embossing folder is. I put mine in sideways. This is waves, and they're all going the wrong direction. So let me show you. See how my waves are going sideways? So if I made a bag, all my waves would be sideways. So maybe I'll make a pocket or something with this one. Maybe back it to something. I don't know. But that's some things that I messed up this time. I always mess up every time. I thought on this haunted house, I could run some black over the house maybe. How cool does that look? I'm using the permanent ink this time. And I think on these pumpkins, I might just leave them as they are. What do you think? Or should I color them black too? Because when I fold this bag, all you're really going to see is the house. I'm making a fall journal, and I am going to make a Halloween one as well. So I'm sure this will end up going in there somehow. Let's go ahead and do the pumpkins in black. I mean, it's all grungy, right? This side probably won't show up, or actually, my mistake might look okay. Gives it a different look on both sides. What do you think? Isn't it cool? I love it. Not so bad. So, actually, I guess I don't even have to spray this because I use permanent inks. Isn't that one a cool one? Love that one too. So here's our bag, and it's not totally dry, but just for the sake of the video, I'm going to go ahead and finish it up so we can put our grungy little card in it. I just won't smooth it down quite as much, so if any of it isn't totally dry, it won't come off. I'm just folding it where they meet in the middle, putting a very thin line of glue. Sorry for not moving my box, but I don't think this is totally dry yet, so I can't even see where I've got the glue. I don't think this is totally dry yet, so I didn't want the ink to come off on my desk. Just push it down, and then, oh, I glued that. Now you're going to get to see what I was talking about, it being harder to do this way. So you fold it up, and I didn't follow my own tutorial. And I'm going to miter the edges. And now, because this is already glued, I'm going to try to hold it away and cut it across. And this was what I was saying. If you don't glue it first, this is a lot easier for me to do before it's glued. And these are open. I can cut them better. Because, see, I didn't really cut that very good. But it's okay. It will work. I'm going to glue it. Doesn't that look cool? I love it so much. And you don't have to do these grungy. I mean, you can use any color alcohol inks. You can use light colors, blues, whatever you want to. Whatever your theme is, or whatever kind of things you like. Just making sure I didn't glue it shut. And it should be the perfect size for our tag. Look at there. Isn't that wonderful? How easy is that? So you can, with that way of calculating the size of your bag, you can make these for absolutely anything. I love it. I love it. I hope you do too. Thanks for joining me. I hope you like this. Get some inspiration. Maybe learn from all the things that I messed up, as usual. I will say, I think I may have already mentioned, but I didn't sew this to the bag. I sewed around it and then I glued it to the bag because I didn't want it to catch when I put cards inside. These are pretty much fitted and I knew I wouldn't have a lot of room on the inside. So I hope you like these. I hope you'll try some for yourself. Thanks for joining me with all of my little errors. Maybe you can learn from my mistakes. I don't know. I think somebody did say that. Show your mistakes. We learn from them. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye.